We are going to take one more look at our menu-driven program. This is the one from Chapter 4, where we had a menu, we had constants declared for different rates, and then we used a switch case statement in order to execute the code. This particular program also used a type of error trapping here, where it checked to see if the value entered was between 1 and 3. That's called a range check. And then we also had if they did not choose a correct value, the program basically just quit and there was no option to run the program again. We are going to look at the same program, but it's going to be in Chapter 6. So we're going to add an existing item from our source code files, Chapter 6. It's program 14 from Chapter 6. We're going to take the Chapter 4 program and exclude it from the project. And then we're going to take a look at this code. I am going to go ahead and put in remember you can do cin.get. You have to type that twice so that you get the return character off the buffer, and then it will pause the screen. So this gets the buffer data, and then this will pause the screen, is what that does. Now, what's different about this program is this is where we're headed. This is like down the road, where we actually want to write all of our programs using modules or methods. So if we take a look at this program, it has 3 methods. It's going to display the menu, get the user's choice, and then show the corresponding fees with a method that takes in the category, the rate, and the months. I have shown you with method prototypes. I kind of prefer on a method prototype to just list the data types. Both are correct. So you can list data types and variable names, or you can just list the data types. My preference is just the data types. That's just my preference. So now the program, if we take a look at it, is going to be that we are going to set our constants, which we've already discussed in an earlier video. We have 2 integer variables, choice and months. We have our outputting, our formatting for our output, and then we have a do while loop. This loop is going to actually allow our program to run again if the user makes a bad choice. It has a method to display the menu. It has a method to get a choice and returns that choice back here to the program. And then if that choice does not equal 4, it's going to then say, well, we know how many months we're going to execute, input the number of months, and then using a switch case statement, call the show fees method. So rather than writing all of the code within that method or within the case statement, instead of having 3 or 4 lines of code, maybe here, there's just the method call. And please notice that it's basically the same for each one of these. They're sending in a string, they send in the constant rate, and they send in the number of months. So then all of our code definitions are below main. So you define or you write what's called the function definitions below main. So the function prototypes are only what the function is going to expect, and the compiler needs that before main. And then you actually define them or write the code that creates the functions below main. When you are writing a function definition, remember that you have the exact same line as the prototype, but without a semicolon. So a lot of times I'll copy the prototype, but you need to make sure you delete that semicolon. And then display menu clears the screen, first of all, and just displays the menu. That's its only job. So that's all it should do. So it displays the menu, goes back up. The next line of code up above is that it gets the integer value for the choice. Please notice that they have nicely kind of put the error trapping right into this get choice method so that nobody is getting out of this method unless they enter a valid choice, which is why they can say in the main driver program if the choice does not equal 4, because they know that the user has entered either a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. They don't have any other choice because get choice, this method we were looking at down here, does the error trapping. This is a type of range checking here. It's a little bit different than in the other program, but it's checking to see if a value falls between 1 and 3. If it doesn't, it's going to ask them to input a new value until they get a correct value. Last but not least, the show fees function, and please notice the documentation on this. Every one of these methods has a little bit of a fancy documentation, but it's telling the name of the method, and then it tells what the inputs are, and it tells what it returns. So here we have the name of the method. It tells what the inputs are. It says that these values are passed in as arguments, and then it computes the total charge, and which is then printed on the screen or returned. I don't remember which. It's got to be printed on the screen because it's a void. So in this particular program here, then when they show the fees, they just do membership type, months, and then they do a calculation right here, rate times month. I would probably prefer that that was calculated earlier. This would be like a this would be like the yearly rate that they are calculating. And so that's going to be the rate times the months. Maybe it's not yearly because maybe they went for 6 months, but it would basically be something called a total rate. I prefer to create a local variable for that because then when I output it, if I use that variable here, total rate, to me it's more readable. What am I outputting? I'm outputting the total rate. And the calculation part is somewhere else. There's two schools of thought on that. Some people will be die-hard, doing it the other way, and some people will be die-hard doing it the way that I just showed you. That's a personal preference, kind of. And so that method will just show the fees. So then when we run this program, it's going to run the same as the other ones did, except this one's using modularization. This one is using, it's still using a switch case statement. And then, but the other thing that's a little bit different is that it actually repeats the program if I enter bad data. So let's say I enter 5. It says you can only enter a 1 through 4, press re-enter. And then I'm going to type in a 3. And then for how many months? 12. Press enter. And it tells me the data. There was a little bit of glitch here. I probably would have put a return here to the please re-enter, but it's basically just not letting me do anything until I input correct data. It runs the code again until I enter correct data. So that's the last in the series of menu-driven programs. This one does use modularization, and it also includes the error trapping and outputting to 2 decimal places. So it's a good sample program. If I press enter after I've successfully run the program, it runs the whole menu again. Remember that there was the clear screen method in there that let me clear the screen. If I choose to quit the program, then we're done. And it exits without holding the screen open. So this is actually a pretty good model program. It's program 6-14 in your textbook. If you want to go back and access that source code, this would be a good one to kind of earmark.